Hey everybody, welcome back. Tonight we're going to continue on with project 22 here, trying to fabricate the throat and the heel for this 135-degree gooseneck elbow. So let's go on. The previous video you should have seen that we fabricated the left-hand cheek and the right-hand cheek underneath the book here for that elbow. And now we are going to move on and get ready to fabricate the throat from that pattern and the heel from this pattern as well. So if you look at those drawings there, if you look at them close enough, you'll notice that the final dimensions should be 8 inches, and then they've got it laid out here as 7/8 for our lock form machine, the take-up of that, which most of them again are that 1 inch. So let's get on into it. And then there's one more page in this book right here. It's a demonstration or kind of a small view of forming the cinch edge to hold that screen. So let's go ahead and go at this then. So we're going to start with the throat first of all here tonight. And the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to figure out my dimension here, my rough length of the project. So I'm just going to take a piece of sheet metal, something like this here, and start on one edge and then pull that around until it runs down to the bottom, and then we'll cut that off right there on the edge where that belongs, just like that. Alright, and then you can verify that length with the other part, make sure that fits as well, which I had previously done this already, so we are good to go on that. So that's the length of the throat. The next thing I did, off camera of course here, is I ran over to the shear and I cut myself a part that was 9 3/4 inches in width by something that was at least long enough to make up this, and it's going to be, I don't know, this one measures about just under 16.5 inches. So I've got to cut that length yet, which is no big deal, but I did want to get the width there. I had a couple pieces of metal and I just got them down to size. So I've got my 9 3/4 inches in width there, and that would be a finished dimension of 8 inches after I run it through the lock form machine. So moving on then, let's set these aside for a second. Moving on, we're got this laying like this here. I'm going to give it a turn right away. I'm going to give it a rotation here. But for right now, we are going to mark our 7/8 dimensions on the edge of that sheet. Okay, that's taken care of currently. And then on this outer edge here, it says we're going to have a 3/4 inch notch taken out of there, so you can set the depth of that if you like, or you can just notch it out. You can either mark it or run your notcher in there like that. And then we got to figure out our distance, and we've done that right here. We've got our part here laying there, so I'm going to figure out that dimension, lay that out there from where I cut that, and that was the total length of the sheet right there. And then I'll take my square, make certain everything's tight in there, and refine my mark back. I think it's right here. Okay, we're going to line that sheet up then. Find the edge of the length from our mark or previous mark on the sheet, and then square it up and run ourselves a straight edge across there. That distance of that part will be the distance of the 135-degree throat. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to run it up to the shear and we're going to cut that length. Here we go then. And now we got the dimension, the distance for that rolled throat. Okay, so we're back here. We got it cut to the length of the that it's supposed to be here. And now we're going to finish fabricating this other edge here. We notice we've got a 1 inch and a 1 inch dimension mark that we have to put on there to lay out the area where the screen is going to be, laying that area out. So the first one, we're just going to take the easy route. We're going to use our scribe, run a 1 inch mark across there. And then the second one, we'll measure from the edge of the sheet. It needs to be 2 inches. And then with our square, we'll square that up there as well. Right there. And now we're ready to get our notcher out, and we'll fabricate this throat. So if you look at the plan, you'll notice this is upside down. Well, kind of. Sitting this part here, there's a couple degrees setback on those. We're going to cut them in just maybe by about 1/8 of an inch on the part. Another thing you could do is you can use your long snips in this situation. Just a couple degrees setback there. And that'll give you a really nice crisp edge with those longer snips. And then on the other end, if I flip the book back over here, we're going to put our 3/4 inch notches in them. And then cut those corners off. Alright, the inner throat is ready to be run through the lock former and then rolled. So, but we're going to continue on. Before I do that, I'll do them both at once. Let's run the heel, or fabricate the heel, and get that ready to go. So on the next page, again, we're going to take the parts. Here, I got a little bit of a longer sample on that. Slide some of this up out of the way. Line up the edges. We'll pull that around. And again, we'll cut that off right where that belongs. And then you can verify it again with the other part. And if you don't want to cut it off, that's fine. You can mark it and then verify it if you're concerned about this. I figure if it's short, I'll just go get another piece of scrap out of the bin. So anyway, those fit together. We'll set them aside. And then, just like before, I've got my 9 3/4 inch width here. That's done. So let's get our length of that part cut and ready to go. Doing this one just a little bit differently. I'm going to cut the length first. Not that it's really a big deal in any way, shape, or form. Alright. We'll get that ready to be squared across there. And we'll take it up to the shear and cut the length. Okay, here we go. Let's cut that length. And there we go. We got that set up and that link's done. Okay, very similar to the previous part then. We're going to take our 7/8 mark, or our take up for our lock form machine. Probably an inch for most people. 7/8 for this machine. We'll run that down there. And then on the one edge, it's got a 1 inch and a 2 inch dimension mark there. So we'll put that 1 inch on there. We'll measure the 2 inch dimension. Square that second one across. In the other end, just like before, takes a 3/4 inch notch. So you don't even have to mark it if you don't want to, but you can if you prefer. And with your snips, we'll take them corners off there. And on the other end, with the 2 inch section, again, just a slight couple degree relief back out of that corner. We'll clip them off there. Okay, now we've got the heel and the throat that is ready to be run through the lock form machine. So let's do that next. Here we go. Got the lock form machine here. We're going to run these parts lines up. I've got in my hands the throat, and then we'll run the heel next. So here we are. Spinning around, we'll do the same, keeping it tight against the fence. Back through again. And do the same with the heel. Okay, here we are back at the bench again. I'm getting ready to put the roll on these, so after I ran it through the lock former, I put the spacers in, all 4 of these, but before I roll it, I know that there's a straight section on these from the previous project, or the previous drawing here. If we look back, there was a straight section for 5 inches before we started our pivot point. So we're going to measure up that distance off the bottom, and then we're going to put a kind of an indication mark on both of these on where we need to stop that roll. And if you want to be precise, you can take the square and you know, put a straight edge on it all the way across, and that's just fine. So what we're looking at on the heel, there's going to be a straight section, and then everything else is going to get rolled up to this last point where the double 90 degree, or it's going to bend out and then back in with that 1 inch section on the top and all 4 sides and everything there for that. Be there. The only other thing that you could do potentially, if your brackets don't move, is take a Sharpie. I think I got one in my pocket here, maybe right here, and you can mark out on your spacers where you want to stop with that roll, because that's going to have to be seen, or it's going to be shown from the back side. So let's go ahead and spin over there, and we'll start the rolls next. right before I roll it, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to look at my part and make certain I roll it in the right direction. So if I notice that there's that straight section down there, it's got to be rolled around that direction, minus the last 2 inches here. And I didn't mark them because the lock form, we actually cut that off 2 inches from the edge. So that'll be fine if we just visualize that. So we're going to put it in the roll there. This time it's going to be lines down for the throat, starting at that 2-inch edge, and then look at the tension. Maybe just a little bit further yet. Maybe one more turn or half a turn on there. And that doesn't look too bad for the throat. I'm going to stop there. So we'll set that one aside, and then we're going to roll the heel. So again, just like before, we're going to determine which direction the heel has to be rolled, noting that there's a straight section down here, and then in the middle, there's a rolled section all up to the last 2 inches of the end. Now it's a lot smaller or shallower of a curve, so we're going to back them back off quite a bit again. And then we'll slip it in our rolls. And this time, right before we slip it in again, determining which direction it has to be, either lines out or lines up, lines down. And this time it has to be lines up facing us. Okay, everybody, we're just about ready for assembly. I took the spacers out of the rolled heel and throat we just got done with. I'm not going to go and assemble it just yet, though. We could probably do this afterwards if it was, a mistake. But what we're looking to do is we're going to fabricate the forming clench or the edge for the screen, and I'll try to show a picture of that here on there. There's a screen that's going to sit in there. So what we've got to do, if we look at the form, if we got our part here, we've got to bend the whole works out and then back in. So we're going to bend it out to a 90 and then down to a 90 on these, both these parts here. So it's a little bit of work to put this in here. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to make certain I've got my marks lined up on my edges. So when I put this in the brake, I can see exactly where they need to be. And they come right out on my notched point right there on the mark. So we're going to slip that in the brake, and I know it's pretty difficult to see from this angle here, getting from each side, and we're going to bend that out to a 90 degree, as in out away from the airflow, or where the air is going to be flowing. And you're going to notice that we're going to get to a point where we're probably going to have to stop because we bottom out against the edge of the brake, which is fine. All right. Now the bottom one is somewhat difficult as well to get that fit in there because it bottoms out against the base down here. So we can kind of flatten it out and get things somewhat started there. And we're going to fold this one in the opposite direction of the part there, up to a 90 and actually beyond on that one there. And that's going to start the edge. If the part was sitting here, like, I guess it would be like this here. I don't know if you can see that on camera very well. And I bent it beyond the 90 already. So with the screen, get this sitting here. The screen, this is going to be folded out to a 90 degree when it gets all together. The screen will sit between this gap right here. Or, if you prefer, you could screw a register grill to it of some sort like that as well. So, let's continue on with that. It's a small enough part so you can form it a little bit by hand if you're careful on what you do there. And then, depending on your application, you can either close it almost down to the 1/8 of an inch. And if it doesn't fit in the brake, just another side note here is you can always use your seamers. You just kind of work that down in bits and pieces at a time. So that looks fairly decent for everything there. Okay, that one's complete and pretty much ready to go where that's going to stop. And we can work them a little bit later too. So let's finish up the cheeks now with that same scenario there, as well as the heel. So again, on our 2-inch mark, it's going to get bent out, and the 1-inch mark is going to get bent back in there. This one's a little bigger radius, so there's a little bit more room to work with. Pull that up to a 90. And we'll flip it over and set it in there at the 1-inch mark. Come on. And this one I again went beyond the 90. And that's looking like that. So we got the heel and the throat, those edges made. Now we got to figure out a way to get this corner bent up to a 90, which can be kind of challenging because if you're over here, you get in the road of the brake and everything, so you got to get off to the side. And then you got this 90-degree bend on it down here, which gets in the way where you want to bend it. So what I'm going to do is on the 1/2-inch area that the brake is, I'm just going to flatten my easy edge out just a little bit there. Set it on the edge. Find that mark, that 2-inch transferred mark all the way across there. Set it in there where it belongs. And do the same on this other side. And we'll pull that up to the 90 degree as well. And then when you get here, you find out that, okay, the handle might get in the way, so you got to make sure you get the part out of there before the handle comes down on top of it. And then finally you can flip it over and do the same over here. And just like before, being careful over here on this corner not to damage anything, that will pull it up to over a 90-degree bend. Okay, and then we just got to fix that last corner up using your pliers or your seamers again here. We'll just pull that 1/4 inch back up to where it was, and that should fit really nicely if we're lucky. And the last one here, the same thing. We'll go down to the other side of the brake. Flatten out that corner. And then just repairing that corner yet again one more time. So I've got a gap in there, so later on I don't know if I got an example. Maybe I do here. So later on, when this is all together, we can kind of slide a screen down in there and then be able to close one of the edges, or maybe you want to have it open so you can slide one in and then lock it in as well. I know that's not a screen, but anyhow, that's one of them methods. So there we have it. We've got the completed throat, the left hand and the right hand cheek, and the heel ready to go. So that's going to conclude everything that goes with fabricating the project. I hope you'll catch me on part 3 of this 3-part series for assembly. Thanks for watching. We'll catch you later.